Good morning and good afternoon to all our listeners today, and welcome to today's Ranger4 webcast. Today we're talking about ways of working in the context of leadership and, of course, our favourite subject, DevOps. So let's get started. Interestingly, as I just said, DevOps, often Ranger4's favourite subject. In fact, we've built our entire business around it and do lots and lots of services with some amazing clients all around the world, helping them improve their DevOps chops. Ultimately, though, what we're really trying to do is help people become higher performing organisations. And increasingly what we're noticing is that there are other words that people are using that contribute to these systems of thinking that we consider to be DevOps. DevOps itself has evolved quite a lot in the decade that it's been around. It's become much more than just being about agile system administration and really about end-to-end value stream thinking. And that's not always reflected in our clients. There's still quite a lot of difference in individual humans' perception and understanding of what DevOps is. So some people really try and put it and keep it in its automation box and just think of it as the CD pipeline or the continuous delivery pipeline. And other people like us, consider it to be concerned with, as we say in our tagline, optimizing the flow from idea to value realization. So consideration of all aspects of the value stream, and not just how to automate things, but how to improve culture and behavior and the way that we manage our processes in addition to the way that we automate our processes. So DevOps is a really useful word, but as I said, there's all these other words. There's ITSM and safety culture, agile, holacracy, learning organization, system thinking, all these new things, newer ones like site reliability engineering, older things like lean and the theory of constraints, all of these things that are contributing to these different ways of thinking or ways of working. And we've noticed some other patterns with our clients as well. So when we talk, for example, outside of technology, the DevOps word loses a lot of its currency and we get a lot of blank faces, and the agile word works better sometimes outside of the technology area, and the other business teams find it easier to talk about agile. But we're getting to the point where we kind of think maybe we don't really need any of these words, and we think maybe there's going to be things we haven't invented yet, or maybe we can have this conversation about ways of working more generically. And this has really kind of come to a head in some of our client situations. For example, as part of a services package with one of the gaming organisations that we work with, what we agreed to do with them was to write a DevOps playbook. When we started to write the DevOps playbook, they gave us their Agile playbook to help inform what we were doing. And we thought, you don't need an Agile and a DevOps playbook. What you need is a way of working playbook. So really where this has got us to thinking is, trying to take away the words and think about the outcomes and the patterns that these ways of thinking and ways of working that allow us to improve organisational performance. And what's common and what are the conclusions we can draw from all of these contributing elements. So here are common characteristics of these ways of working. So the first one is we're really about little and often. So this incremental change, breaking things down into small chunks. So doing that allows us to do two key things. One, it reduces the risk of doing anything, because we're going to try a little bit and then look at it and then we'll try a bit more. So we're not committing ourselves, our money or our time to do something long term. We are, in the sense that we're creating a long-term vision, but we're going to do it in small amounts so that we can keep course checking and course correcting as we receive this feedback frequently and often and early in our processes. The second thing is it really requires an organisational kind of change in the way that we think of not being hierarchical and not being siloed, but actually distributing authority to have these autonomous cells or units or squads or teams of people that are dedicated, long-lived teams to a long-lived product. So there's typically smaller teams because we know from lots of behavioural analysis and research that very large teams will lose trust and they can't collaborate as effectively, and there are lots of advantages to keeping our teams around sort of 8 or 10 people. We also know that there's lots of advantages of having all of the necessary functions within one team, and as where possible, also making those people up multifunctional. So in typical Scrum parlance, this would be having our team, our Scrum team, with our 3 roles typically of our product owner, our Scrum Master, and then our teams. This is why we just have the team. This is why in DevOps, we also like to say things like everyone's an engineer, because what we want to do is not necessarily say that person's a business analyst, that person is a tester, and that person is a developer. And then in sort of advanced DevOps Scrum world, we don't want to say, and that person is an SRE or IT ops person in that team as well. What we want is this concept that everyone is an engineer, and if it's Tuesday afternoon and something needs testing, pretty much anyone in the team can do that. It's not the sole role of the tester. And the reasons that we like cross-functional and multifunctional capabilities is because it stops us wasting time. It stops us waiting for people. It stops us handing off things and getting things wrong when we do hand off. It encourages that close collaboration and fast flow. So this requires us to unlearn quite a lot of what we've previously learned, particularly around how to run projects and how to do lots of planning and how to follow milestones and Gantt charts and manage budgets and things like that. So it requires quite a sea change in the way that people think. So in addition to that, there is this, whilst we're giving people autonomy, we also need to empower them. And this is, again, a shift in behaviour. So lots of people that have been in a command and control hierarchical environment will feel that they don't have autonomy. And in order to release that autonomy, they need to be empowered. And you can't just tell people you're now empowered. It actually requires a shift in the way that leaders operate. So a leader needs to learn not to be a commander or a controller, but to be some kind of servant coach or transformational leader that sees their role as assisting the teams to discover and learn things and to participate. And a lot of this then, if we're moving from command to control, we don't want chaos. So how do we ensure that there is some kind of rhythm or coordination or alignment within an organisation that is very autonomous at an individual level? Well, the key thing here is around peer review. So we're going to talk more about peer reviews a little bit later as well. In DevOps, we also love to say that we break dependencies, don't manage them. And that's very common with things like Lean as well. So we really don't want to create more process and more bureaucracy and more things like release schedules and trains and change approval boards and cabs and things like that, that will basically help us ensure that dependencies are respected and controlled, but actually in the end cause anti-patterns that create lots of problems and lots of delays in the process, and often don't have the right people looking at the right things at the right time. So we need to break those dependencies at a process and at a system level. So this is a system level where we talk about architectural approaches of things like microservices in particular, and really loosely coupling systems and breaking up these very large monoliths in order to allow us to change small parts of them at speed and test small parts of them at speed and deploy small parts of them at speed. So this revolves again back around to the leadership, and in particular, if we're going to talk Agile and Scrum, the Scrum Master's role in terms of impediment removal. And this is what our servant coach leaders and our Scrum Masters in the teams main role is in these new ways of working, is to get stuff out of people's way and streamline these processes. And encourage everybody to be able to think about this end-to-end value stream-based thinking. So this is the value stream approaches that come out of our Lean and TPS work that allow us to visually collaborate and understand where something starts and the steps that it goes through. The customer, of course, front and centre of all of this, and this focus moves from away from things like cost and capacity, away from the questions like productivity, and really focusing in on value and the definition of value, and trying to put hard numbers on that, whether it is a revenue number or a profitability number or some kind of conversion rate or a customer delight NPS or net promoter score type value that we can measure. And really underpinning all of this is the knowledge that we need to all be able to go at higher speed to continue to be able to compete in an increasingly digitally disrupted world. But we also need to have stability. So some things in the past are very much focused on throughput. So for example, Agile, whilst it's mainly about risk and feedback, it's often thought to be about velocity as well. And things like ITSM really tell us to control the quality and the reliability, as do newer things like SRE or site reliability engineering, which has more recently come out of Google. So kind of this question then, this who's leading who? So we've talked a lot there about sort of technology things. So we've talked about digital disruption and how that is effectively driving us to want to do things faster and better in order to be able to compete in this disrupted marketplace. And I've put the business in quotation marks there because we're particularly allergic to this phrase at Ranger4 because technology used to, we talked about aligning it with the business, and then we'd have conversations about technology integrating with the business, but actually technology is the business, and the things that are outside of technology are parts of the business as well, but we need to kind of get away from this them and us idea. What's tending to happen in the market is lots of these organisations, I've got a few up here as examples, that very openly talk about being technology companies. So Alaska Airlines, for example, describes itself as a technology company with wings. And what they're really trying to say there is that they've recognised the importance of the digital world around us, and that if they don't make technology their first and foremost strategic asset and the way that they operate, then they will lose out. So they're no longer an airline. Of course, that is the service they ultimately provide, but the way that they do it is by their extreme focus on systems around it that provide great service for the customer and lots of stability and reliability and funky new things to play with. So that's all great. But as one of my customers once said to me, have you got examples of instances where it's not somebody from the technology team that has claimed that it's a technology company? And you can look at places like Domino Pizza in Hiscox, less publicly, where CEOs and very senior people in the organisation have actually said this as well. And that changes things quite a lot. It changes the strategic importance of the people that work in technology within an organisation. And that is quite exciting for technologists. It means that we are no longer kind of bottom of the food chain, but we now have this position where we are no longer a cost centre, we are no longer an order taker, we are the people that can be the disruptors, and we are the people that can make change happen. So that's all terribly exciting. But what tends to happen, and you'll remember the dog wagging its tail, or who, is technology the tail that wags the dog, or is that another department? And we're kind of asking that question because what happens is that because a lot of this digital disruption is about technology, obviously, the people that recognise it and understand and want to initially embrace the changes that the technology opportunity provides are the technology people. So these transformations, as people like to call them, and I particularly don't like the word transformation either, because it is very big bang to me, which makes it very project driven, which makes it very waterfally in my mind, and it's very disruptive when people try and do something on such a large scale. So I prefer to use the word evolution. But when these organisations are consciously trying to change things, and they're likely to call it something like a digital transformation or an agile transformation or a DevOps initiative, or any of these ways of working that people are trying to push through and lead, it starts in the technology teams. And that's all well and good, and there's a lot that we can do to create autonomous teams and break work up into smaller pieces and analyse the work that we do and our value streams and take excess waste out of our value streams and make improvements. There's lots and lots that we can do, but with nearly every organisation that we work with, there comes a point where there's a realisation that there is a whole part of the organisation outside of technology that we need to interact with that aren't ready. And they aren't ready because no one's told them about this. We haven't had the conversations. All the technology people are happily chatting away about Scrum, and they've got their agile coaches in, and they're setting up CD pipelines and talking about cultural artifacts, but the rest of the business is often not part of the conversation. And we get cross with them. We get cross with them because our funding comes on a project by project basis, which means it's very difficult for us to create a long-lived product. It's very difficult for us to fund a team. We want to try and get a team that we recognise is going to cost X million pounds a year, and we have the money for that up front, and during the year we want to report back on the value and the experiments that we've been delivering in very short, usually 2-week long sprints, or maybe some more continuous delivery model, either in Scrum, which you can do continuous delivery in Scrum. You don't have to just release at the end of every sprint, or in more of a Kanban model that people would like to use as well. We get annoyed with the business not providing us product owners, and we often ask our customers about product owners, and we see this as a pattern a lot, that they find it difficult to find full-time dedicated product owners for the team, and there's this conversation about whether they should be predominantly business skilled or technical skilled, or is it a balance between the two. We have great examples from some of our customers. One of the legal clients that we work with had fee-paying lawyers, 2 of them, because they couldn't commit 100% of the time. So 2 of them acting as a product owner on a single product in the past, which worked really well for them. One of the banks we work with that doesn't have a great pattern across the whole bank for product owners, but one particular part of their commercial bank did get a trader to be a product owner. So it can be done, but quite often what we see is what we call product owner by proxy, which is usually where a business analyst is acting in that role as product owner. So acting as the person that is prioritising and refining the backlog and working with the customer to get those requirements out. Other things that we get annoyed about, we hear this a lot, people saying we can't, we buy this product from this area, or we've outsourced our testing to so-and-so, and we can't control them. We can't work in an agile way with them. We can't collaborate with them. This is the process that they've given us. Regulations are very common when we work. I mentioned banking earlier. We work a lot in banking, a lot in insurance. Also with gaming companies, which are all very highly regulated, and also with some companies like Lego, who you might not think are that highly regulated, but actually, if you think of the Lego customer base, it is children, and therefore we need to be highly regulated with working with vulnerable people. So we think regulations are not good for agile approaches. We have to set them up as a project because they have given us a date that it needs to be done by. So that's kind of our legal people annoying us there. And then we've got our HR people annoying us as well, because they want to do this horrible annual performance review process, much like the annual budgeting process from finance, thanks finance, that is incredibly lengthy, onerous, tedious, boring, very time hoovering, and can lead to quite toxic behaviours and quite toxic emotions as we hand out the annual bonuses. So these are kind of the key constraints I wanted to share today. There's 5 of them there from various different parts of the business, which are constraining our ability to embrace these new ways of working and really spread them across the enterprise. So we can look at each one in a little bit more detail. So the first one then, going back to the product owner people are unavailable, making fast feedback impossible. This gentleman is Mark Schwartz. He's the author of the books along the bottom, and was also the CIO of US Customs and Immigration, and is now at AWS. And I asked him recently, I had the opportunity to spend some time with him at the DevOps Enterprise Summit, and I asked him his view on this this problem about the business not providing us with product owners. And he said, simply, if you can't invest your people, then what you say you want to do is not worthwhile. Which I just thought was a genius amount of simplicity about kind of this problem. It's like this conversation has to be better between the teams that are being asked to deliver something who are asking to deliver something and the people who are going to benefit from it. So, you know, if that conversation isn't happening, so if people are just being told what to do and given a whole big list of requirements, being told to get on with it, and they're asking for support and not getting it, that conversation needs to change, and those people need to come on board and be brought on the journey as well. And this is part of the challenge. As I said earlier, a lot of the reason why the business isn't engaging with these ways of working and ways of thinking conversations is because they don't know about them. So there is a job for the leaders and for the technologists and for the product owners and for the scrum masters to be evangelists and help these conversations happen and bring these other areas of the business on board. So looking at another area, so looking at sort of the sales and procurement type here. So customer and supplier contracts make it difficult to collaborate daily. Well, you know, we've all come across the Agile Manifesto. This is the key values here. And the one I really want to focus in on is that we value customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And I think you can also change that to supplier collaboration over contract negotiation. So instead of having that mental attitude that says, well, we can't work with them because that's not how we've agreed to work with them, we've got a contract that says this, that, and the other. Again, we need to put away that thinking and have conversations with these people. One of our particular clients is a technology firm that delivers to their government, and the government wants them to work in a waterfall manner, and that they know that if they embrace these new ways of working, which they are actively doing, that they will improve what they deliver. They believe and they are seeing that they are able to influence the throughput and the stability of their services by embracing these ways of working. But their key constraint still remains that the customer RFPs, requests for proposals and things that they're provided with demand that they operate in a waterfall project-oriented manner, which is fine. But as we say to them, they won't forever. Those customers at some point will also want to be doing these things, and it's their job as a leader in their market, as a key technologist, to drive those conversations with their customer and help their customer improve the way that they deliver, and ask their customer if they want to see something sooner, whether they want to be able to give them feedback and ensure that the thing that they receive at the end of the process is going to be more like the thing that they asked for at the start. And there are similar conversations that you can have around the supplier area as well. So as I said earlier, you know, if you've outsourced your testing to Wipro or TCS or whoever it is, you can have conversations with them. You can work out how to collaborate with them. You can work out how to embed the testing capability or the IT operations capability or whatever it is in the squads. There is always room for conversation. The next one then, the regulations. So these are perceived set deadlines and therefore require project thinking. This is about risk, right? I mean, Agile doesn't mean that we don't have a live date necessarily. It doesn't have, you know, we are delivering things on an incremental basis. So we're actually doing lots of mini live dates, if you like. But what we are doing is constant inspection and adaptation. So we are getting feedback very regularly over whether we are going in the right direction. There's a whole list of things here. This is from a Boston Consulting Group article, which is linked in the slides, which should be available from SlideShare after the webcast. And it talks about, you know, things that you can sense whether your organisation or the organisation that you're working with are ready and are likely to be able to embrace these ways of working to change the way that they deliver regulation projects. And the same rule applies for these regulation initiatives as it does for any other kind of software development or any other HR program development or marketing program development, that the idea is doing it little and often, getting really close to that customer or the requirements and receiving very regular and frequent feedback, allowing us to decide what to do next and make sure that our course is correct and correcting it if need be. Then the last one then out of these, so performance reviews, KPIs and bonuses that drive the wrong behaviours. So there's two things here, really. You know, we talked with customers a lot about metrics, obviously, and measurements and how to see that improvements are happening. And one of the conversations we often have is around KPIs, and people will tell us that they set a KPI that was deployment frequency, which on the face of it looks like a really good one, but the problem can be that it just creates a situation where people do lots and lots of deployments of really, really poor quality stuff. We had another one where teams were being KPI'd, if you like, on the number of sprints, which meant that they were excluding the testers and the QA people out of the sprint because they wanted to prove that how fast they could go. Again, kind of they forgot the quality aspects. There's also, as I said earlier, this annual bonus system that a lot of organisations have, which creates a very toxic environment. So people get very upset and they believe they've been paid the right bonus, and they all hate the boss because of it. And it's all quite unpleasant. We've got one banking customer where one particular unit decided to pay out the annual bonus, just paid it out equally to absolutely everybody in that particular area. We have another one that's been talking about getting rid of the annual bonus entirely and just putting it into everyone's base salary. And in fact, some of the management 3.0 thinking says you should do exactly that. If it is a predictable type bonus that is being paid, you should just include it as part of the standard package. For people that have been working, particularly the banking sector, for a long time, it's quite kind of reprograms a part of their brain to not expect their annual bonuses. And then a lot of other clients are looking towards this concept of micro bonuses. So you can see a headline here about Boulder-based Bonusly letting employees donating micro bonuses to disaster relief. So this is very interesting from a motivational perspective. So we've done quite a lot of work around behaviour and motivation. At Ranger4 looked at David Rock's SCARF model, and the SCARF model says that basically we were all driven by our lizard brain and experienced fight or flight symptoms at work, like we do in the kind of the wild, if you like. And SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness and fairness. And fairness is the one I'm going to pick on here, because fairness, people, if you're motivated by equality and worthy causes and things, then actually being able to award micro bonuses and things based on good work is very appealing to those sort of people. So you do good work, you're given a micro bonus, and you are allowed to send it somewhere else. But these micro bonuses are very interesting, and you'll remember from one of the very early slides where we looked at these characteristics of these ways of working, I talked about peer review, and this is the micro bonus is very much a peer review system. So we're no longer got a manager who decides how to hand out the bonuses and decides that somebody's going to get this much, somebody's going to get that much, and then people are very upset. But actually everybody in the team can give out credits, and you can save those credits, and over time you can cash the credits in, or you can wait till the company reports something else. But you could do little bonuses all the time for people that have done nice things. But the key things we want to say about measurements really is that you should never measure to target. We should measure to learn and measure to improve. So we want to be very cognizant of this, and it does require organisational culture and behaviour to change at quite a deep level. So this conversation about ways of working is so much bigger than just the technology team. So our technology leaders need to not just look within their own bubble, but look across the whole organisation and start these conversations with legal about taking agile approaches to regulations, have conversations with finance about capacity funding models and moving away from projects models, having conversations with the customers and the suppliers about how to collaborate better, and having conversations with HR and the people management people about how to take toxicity out of annual bonus and performance review capabilities. So there you have it. That's the end of today's webcast about ways of working. As I said earlier, you can find these slides on SlideShare, and you know where we are. If you want to talk to us, please email us at hello@ranger4.com. Have a great rest of your day.